A lonely cowboy named Flint thought he was only helping a helpless woman when he bought a mysterious veiled stranger from a brutal slave market for just 5. Nobody wanted her. Nobody dared to even look at her. But the moment a gang of ruthless bandits chased them through the deadly desert, the silent woman revealed a terrifying secret that changed everything. With unbelievable skill and courage, she stood against armed outlaws like a warrior born for battle. Soon Flint discovers that the woman he rescued is not an ordinary captive. She is the hidden daughter of the most feared Apache chief in the West. Now hunted by dangerous men and trapped between two worlds, Flint and the mysterious warrior must fight side by side to survive. What began as a simple act of kindness soon becomes an unforgettable story of love, honor, revenge, and a destiny that would bring peace between enemies who had hated each other for generations. So subscribe to my channel. The sun fell like fire on the Redstone Plaza. Flint had just arrived in town after 3 days of searching for information about the bandits who had stolen his cattle. His horse Thunder snorted tiredly as he watched the crowd gathered in front of the wooden platform, a slave market. Flint clenched his jaw. He hated these places, but he needed answers. And someone here had to know something. "Last lot of the day, gentlemen," shouted the auctioneer, a fat man with a stained vest. A young, strong woman, a figure climbed onto the platform. She wore a black veil that completely covered her face in a very worn earth-colored dress. Her hands were tied with thick ropes. She walked slowly, dragging her feet slightly. "Who will bid?" asked the auctioneer in a powerful voice. Total silence. The men looked at the veiled woman and shook their heads. Some were already walking away, quickly losing interest. "She must be sick," someone near Flint murmured. "Or old," added another. "That's why they cover her." The auctioneer wiped the sweat from his forehead with a dirty handkerchief. "One. Come on, gentlemen, it's a bargain." More silence. The plaza began to empty. Several cowboys headed toward the shops, completely losing interest. Flint watched the scene with disinterest until he noticed something strange. Despite the brutal heat, the woman stood perfectly upright. Her shoulders were back, her head high. She didn't tremble or sway. There was pride in that posture, dignity. It wasn't the attitude of someone weak or sick. The auctioneer was starting to get desperate. "Please, gentlemen." A large cowboy with a broken hat spat on the ground. "Not even if you paid me. She probably has a disfigured face or worse." Several men laughed. The woman didn't move, but Flint saw her tied hands clench into tight fists. That told him everything he needed to know. This woman had spirit. Thunder neighed softly and shook his head, as if he too sensed different about that veiled woman. "Last chance, gentlemen." The auctioneer seemed resigned. "Will anyone offer $5 measly?" No one answered. The man sighed deeply, preparing to end the auction without selling anything. Flint hadn't planned to get involved. He had his own problems. But something about the woman's proud posture reminded him of his mother. She had also been sold when he was a child. She had also held her head high despite everything. He never saw her again. "I will," Flint said, his voice clear and firm. All heads turned toward him as if they were one. The auctioneer's eyes opened wide in surprise, then he smiled broadly, showing yellow teeth. "We have a buyer. Does anyone offer more?" The silence was even deeper. Now the men looked at Flint as if he had just done the stupidest thing in the world. An old man with a white beard limped closer. "Son, listen to me carefully. That veil hides something terrible. Don't be a fool." "Thanks for the advice," Flint replied dryly. He took 5 silver coins from his pocket and tossed them into the air. The auctioneer caught them with hands trembling with excitement. "Sold!" he shouted cheerfully. "She's all yours, friend. God help you." The man climbed onto the platform and cut the ropes from the woman's wrists with a rusty knife. She rubbed her wrists slowly but did not remove her veil. Flint walked toward the platform. The woman descended the steps without help. Her movements were surprisingly graceful and sure. She was definitely not a sick person. The curious onlookers watched them, and some laughed under their breath. "Follow me," Flint said simply, turning his back. She walked behind him without a word. Flint reached Thunder and mounted with a fluid motion. Then he extended his hand toward the woman. "We have a long road ahead." She stood still, looking at him through the veil. Flint could feel her intense gaze studying him, evaluating him, deciding if she could trust him. Several long seconds passed. Finally, she took his hand. Her grip was firm and strong. There was no weakness in it. Flint pulled her up behind him with ease. She settled into the saddle without making a sound. "Do you have a name?" Flint asked as he guided Thunder out of town. Absolute silence. "That's fine. You'll talk when you're ready." They rode for hours under the relentless sun. The landscape was arid, full of rocks and scattered cacti. Thunder knew the way back to Flint's ranch well, so he could relax a bit. But something bothered him, a persistent feeling at the back of his neck, as if someone was watching them from afar. He looked back discreetly. Nothing. Just the empty road and the dust their hooves kicked up. But the feeling didn't go away. The woman behind him remained completely silent. She asked no questions. She didn't complain about the heat or the long journey. Her silence was strange, but also peaceful in some way. The sun began to set slowly, painting the sky in bright oranges and reds. Thunder slowed his pace, also tired from the long day. Then Flint saw it, a cloud of dust in the distance behind them. It was moving fast, too fast to be just the wind. Riders, several. Trouble, Flint muttered under his breath. The woman behind him tensed immediately. She had seen them too. Flint felt her hands grip his waist tighter. He counted quickly, 5 riders, maybe 6. They were approaching at full speed. Thunder was tired. They couldn't win a long race. He needed to think fast. To his right, he saw a cluster of large rocks, natural formations that offered some protection. It was his best option. "Hang on tight," Flint ordered, spurring Thunder toward the rocks. The horse responded immediately, galloping with the last of his remaining strength. They reached the rocks just as the riders were less than 200 away. Flint dismounted quickly and helped the woman down. He placed her behind the largest rock. "Stay here. Don't move and don't make a sound," he said seriously. She nodded once. Flint pulled his rifle from the horse and positioned himself behind another rock with a good view of the road. The riders stopped about 50 miles away, forming a perfect semicircle. They were bandits, that was obvious. Dirty clothes, guns hanging from their belts, faces marked by sun and fights. The leader was a tall man with a scar running across his entire left cheek. He smiled unpleasantly. "I see you bought something interesting at the market today, stranger." Flint aimed his rifle directly at the man's chest. "None of your business." "Keep moving," the man laughed, showing broken teeth. "But it is my business. You see, we put that woman in that market and we want her back." Flint kept his rifle aimed directly at the bandit leader. The scarred man smiled as if it were all a fun game. "Why did you put her in the market if you wanted her back?" Flint asked, buying time. The bandit shrugged. "Business, friend. We thought someone would pay good money. But no one wanted to buy her because of the veil. Then you came along. I already paid for her. She's mine now," Flint replied firmly. The bandit spat on the ground. "We invested a lot more in capturing her. So give her back and maybe we'll let you walk away alive." The other 5 men slowly spread out, surrounding the rocks from different angles. Flint quickly calculated his options. It was 6 against 1. He had limited ammunition, and Thunder was exhausted for a quick escape. "Not going to happen," Flint said calmly. The leader sighed theatrically. "What a shame. Boys, bring me the woman. Kill the fool if he resists." The bandits drew their weapons and began to advance. Flint pulled the trigger. His first shot kicked up dust right in front of the nearest bandit's feet. "The next one won't miss," he warned. The men stopped, looking at their leader for orders. The scarred man was no longer smiling. "You're a dead man," he growled. Then something completely unexpected happened. The veiled woman came out from behind her rock. She moved fast like a wildcat. Before Flint could react, she had grabbed his spare pistol from his belt. "Wait. What are you doing?" Flint shouted, but she was aiming. Her first bullet hit the leader's hat, ripping it off his head. Her second bullet struck another bandit's gun, sending it flying from his hand. Her third pierced a third man's canteen. It all happened in less than 5 seconds. The bandits stood paralyzed, staring with wide eyes at the veiled woman who held the pistol with completely steady hands. She wasn't even trembling. "It's her," shouted one of the bandits, the Apache chief's daughter. The leader visibly paled. All arrogance was gone from his face, replaced by pure fear. "We didn't know. We thought she was just any prisoner," he stammered. The woman stepped forward. She hadn't said a single word, but her body language spoke clearly. She was ready to shoot again, and this time she wouldn't miss. Flint watched the scene completely stunned. This woman was not a helpless victim. She was a trained warrior. Her movements were precise, professional, lethal. "Get out." Flint finally ordered, taking advantage of the confusion. "And if I see you again, I won't be so kind." The bandits didn't need to be told twice. They clumsily mounted their horses, stumbling over each other in their haste to escape. In less than a minute, only a cloud of dust remained on the horizon. Silence fell over the rocks. Flint slowly turned to the woman who was still holding his pistol. She looked at it for a moment, then handed it back to him, handling it like someone who had used weapons her whole life. "Thanks," Flint said, taking his pistol. "But I need some answers." She returned behind her rock without saying anything. Flint followed her, his curiosity now fully awakened. "Those men said you're the daughter of an Apache chief." Flint continued. "Is it true?" Silence. But this time she nodded slightly. "Why didn't you say anything? Why did you let them sell you in that market?" The woman remained quiet for a long moment. Finally she spoke. Her voice was soft but firm, with an accent that mixed Spanish and English in a musical way. "They killed my guards and captured me while I was hunting far from my tribe. They put this veil on me so no one would know who I was. They planned to ransom me to my father later." Flint processed the information quickly. "But something went wrong with their plan," he said. "No one bought me because of the veil. They got frustrated. They thought maybe they could sell me as a slave anyway and forget the ransom. Until I showed up," Flint finished. "Until you showed up," she repeated. Flint sat on a rock, letting it all sink in. He had accidentally bought the daughter of an Apache chief. The bandits wanted her back, and now he was in the middle of this whole mess. "What's your name?" he finally asked. She hesitated, then answered, "My name is Ayekton. In your language, it means moonlight." "Moonlight," Flint repeated. "That's a beautiful name. And you, what's your name?" "Man who pays tens for a veiled slave no one wants." Flint couldn't help but smile at the slightly mocking tone in her voice. "Flint, just Flint." She tilted her head. "Why did you buy me? Everyone else was afraid." Flint shrugged. "I saw how you stood tall despite everything. That told me you were stronger than you looked. And I was right." Moonlight observed him through the veil for a long moment. Flint could feel the weight of her gaze studying him, evaluating him. "Those men will come back," she said. "They'll eventually bring more friends. They're cowards, but persistent." "I know," Flint said, standing up. "That's why we need to keep moving. My ranch is half a day's ride. We'll be safer there?" "Your ranch." There was surprise in her voice. "You're taking me to your home? I bought your freedom, not your servitude," Flint explained. "At my ranch. You'll be safe until I can take you back to your father." Moonlight stood very still. Then slowly, she raised her hands to the black veil covering her face. "Then you should see who you're traveling with." With a fluid motion, she removed the veil. Flint felt as if someone had punched him in the chest. He couldn't breathe. Moonlight was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen in his life. Her skin was the color of polished bronze. Her eyes were dark as night, but shone with intelligence and strength. Her cheekbones were high and elegant, her lips perfectly formed. But more than her physical beauty, it was the dignity in her expression, the pride in her gaze that truly captured attention. "Now you understand why my captors covered me," she said calmly. "My father is Chief Red Eagle, the most powerful leader of all the northern Apache tribes. If anyone had known who I was, the price would have been much higher." Flint swallowed, trying to find his voice. "I understand. Do you still want to help me?" she asked. "This will bring you a lot of trouble." Flint looked her directly in the eyes. "I'm already in trouble. Could be worse." For the first time, Moonlight smiled slightly. It was a small smile, but it completely transformed her face. "Then let's go. Just Flint. Take me to your ranch." Night fell over the desert like a dark blanket full of stars. Flint decided it was too dangerous to travel in the dark, so they made camp among the rocks. Thunder rested nearby, nibbling on dry bushes. Flint lit a small fire low enough not to attract attention from afar, but enough to keep wild animals away. Moonlight sat on the other side of the fire watching the flames dance. Her veil lay folded beside her. There was no longer any reason to hide from Flint. "Are you hungry?" Flint asked, taking dried meat from his bag. She nodded. Flint tossed her a piece and she caught it easily. They ate in silence for several minutes. Only the crackling of the fire broke the stillness of the night. "How did you learn to shoot like that?" Flint finally asked, unable to contain his curiosity. Moonlight finished chewing before answering. "My father has no sons, only me. From childhood he taught me everything he would have taught a son. Hunting, tracking, fighting, shooting. That's not common among your people. Flint observed. My father is not a common man, she replied with pride. He says women can be as strong as men if given the chance. Many tribal elders disagreed, but my father is the chief. His word is law. Flint nodded impressed. He had heard stories about Chief Red Eagle, a leader respected and feared in equal measure. Now he understood why. He must be very worried about you, Flint said. Moonlight's face darkened. I went hunting with 4 warriors. Those bandits ambushed us in a narrow canyon. They killed my guards before we could react. I fought, but there were too many. They hit me on the head and I woke up with this veil on, tied up in a wagon. I'm sorry, Flint said sincerely. It wasn't your fault? She looked directly at him. But now you're involved. My father will seek vengeance against those men, and when he finds out you bought me, Flint tensed. Will he think I'm like them? Moonlight shook her head. No, if I explain the truth. But you must understand something, Flint. In my culture, when a man buys a woman, even to free her, there are implications. What kind of implications? My father might think that you now own me, that you are responsible for me. She explained carefully. It's complicated. Flint rubbed his face tiredly. Every time he thought he understood the situation, it became more complex. I just want to return you safely to your father. Nothing more. I know, Moonlight said softly. I can see your heart. You're a good man. Flint felt heat in his face that had nothing to do with the fire. He looked away toward the stars. You should sleep. Tomorrow will be a long day. And you? She asked. I'll keep watch. I don't trust those bandits not to come back. Moonlight studied him for a moment, then nodded. She lay down by the fire using her veil as a pillow. Within minutes, her breathing became deep and regular. Flint watched her sleep. Even at rest, there was grace in her. Her black hair shone in the firelight. Her face was peaceful but alert. As if even asleep she was ready to wake and fight. Hours passed. Flint fed the fire occasionally, keeping his eyes on the dark horizon. Thunder does standing up as horses do. When the first light of dawn began to paint the sky, Moonlight woke instantly. There was no period of confusion or drowsiness. One moment she was asleep. The next she was completely alert. Any trouble during the night? She asked. None. I think they were really scared yesterday. For now, she said, standing up. But they'll talk to others. The story will spread. Then we need to move fast. Flint put out the fire with sand. My ranch is about 5 hours away at a good pace. They mounted Thunder again. This time Moonlight didn't hesitate to take Flint's hand. She settled behind him naturally as if they had done it 1,000 times before. The sun rose slowly, bringing with it the characteristic heat of the desert. They rode in silence for the first hour, each lost in their own thoughts. Flint, Moonlight said suddenly, why do you live alone on a ranch? Don't you have family? The question caught Flint off guard. He tightened Thunder's reins a little more. I had family once. My mother was sold when I was 8 years old. My father died a year later, they say of a broken heart. I grew up alone working on different ranches until I could buy my own. I'm sorry, Moonlight said, her voice full of genuine compassion. Now I understand why you bought me. You saw your mother in me. Flint didn't answer, but she was right. The memory of his mother on that platform, so proud even in humiliation, had haunted him his whole life. My people believe that lost people never really leave. Moonlight continued. They live in our hearts and guide us. Your mother would be proud of you. Something loosened in Flint's chest. No one had ever said anything like that to him before. Thank you, he murmured. They continued riding. The landscape began to change gradually. The arid rocks gave way to greener hills with scattered trees and small streams. This was more fertile land, better for cattle. We're close, Flint announced. My ranch is just over that hill. But when they reached the top of the hill, Flint pulled the reins sharply. Thunder stopped, snorting nervously. Below, surrounding his ranch, were at least 15 riders. Even from a distance, Flint could see they were not friendly visitors. They had torn down part of his fence and several carried lit torches. More bandits, Moonlight whispered. Different from yesterday's, they must be their friends. Flint cursed under his breath. They came for revenge. Or for me, Moonlight added. News that the daughter of Chief Red Eagle was seen with a white man must have spread fast. Flint thought quickly. They couldn't face 15 men. But if he did nothing, they would lose their only chance for safe refuge. I have an idea, Flint said. But I need you to trust me. Moonlight looked into his eyes. I trust you. Good, because this is going to be dangerous. Flint dismounted and began to explain his plan. It was risky, maybe even suicidal, but it was their only chance. Moonlight listened attentively. When he finished, she smiled. It wasn't a smile of fear, but of excitement. Your plan is crazy, just Flint. I like it. Are you sure? If something goes wrong, something can always go wrong, she interrupted. That's never stopped a warrior, has it? Flint smiled despite the situation.
No, it hasn't.
Then let's do it. Flint and Moonlight left Thunder hidden among the trees at the foot of the hill. The horse was trained to stay put, so that wouldn't be a problem. Remember, Flint whispered as he checked his rifle. I approach from the front, draw their attention. You circle around the east side where the old barn is. There are weapons stored there. How many weapons? Moonlight asked, adjusting the belt where she carried Flint's pistol. 2 rifles. 3 more pistols. Enough ammunition. They're in a chest under the floorboard's left corner. He explained quickly. When you hear my signal, 3 quick shots in the air. Start shooting from your position. They'll think we have more people. And if they decide to attack you immediately, that's why I need you to be fast. Very fast. Moonlight nodded with determination. She took off her long dress, which was cumbersome, leaving only the trousers she had improvised from fabric underneath. It was more practical for moving fast. I'll be ready, she promised. Flint looked into her eyes. There was something he needed to say, but the words stuck in his throat. Be careful was all he managed to say. You too, just Flint, she replied with a small smile. Moonlight disappeared among the bushes like a shadow, moving silently and fast. Flint waited 5 minutes, counting every second in his mind. Then he began walking toward the ranch by the main path, hands visible, rifle hanging loosely. The bandits saw him immediately. Several shouted alerts, and all aimed their weapons at him. Stop right there, shouted a large man in a black hat. He seemed to be the leader of this group. Flint stopped about 30 meters away. This is my ranch. What do you want? The large man laughed. He had a scar across his left eye, probably from some old fight. Your ranch, huh? Well, it's ours now unless you give us what we came for. I don't have anything you'd be interested in, Flint replied calmly. Liar spat another younger, more nervous bandit. We know you have the Apache woman and the chief's daughter. Flint feigned confusion. What are you talking about? I live alone here. The leader stepped closer, his hand on his pistol. Our friend saw you yesterday. You bought a woman at Red Rock, a veiled woman who turned out to be Moonlight, Red Eagle's daughter. Oh, that woman. Flint shrugged. She escaped last night while I was sleeping. Took water and food. She's probably far away by now. Several bandits looked at each other incredulous. The leader narrowed his eyes. You expect us to believe that? It's the truth, Flint insisted. She was a trained warrior. I couldn't keep her prisoner. Then you won't mind if we search your ranch, the leader said, signaling to his men. 5 bandits began advancing toward the main house. Flint needed more time. Moonlight wasn't in position yet. Wait, Flint shouted. If you're going to rob my house, at least tell me what you gain by finding that woman. The leader stopped considering. He was the type of man who enjoyed boosting. There's a huge reward for her. Alive, of course. Her father will pay anything to get her back. We're talking gold, horses, land. You're going to split the reward among 15 people. Flint asked with a skeptical tone. Doesn't sound like a good deal. The leader frowned. He clearly hadn't thought about that. Or maybe he had planned to keep most of it for himself. That's not your problem. I'm just saying you might end up killing each other over that reward. Flint continued sowing discord. Do you all trust your leader? Are you sure he'll divide everything fairly? Some bandits exchanged suspicious glances. The leader noticed and his face turned red with rage. Shut up. Search the house now. The 5 men started running toward the house. Flint calculated quickly. Moonlight must be in position. It was now or never. He raised his rifle and fired 3 shots into the air, the agreed signal. Immediately shots began coming from the barn. Moonlight fired with incredible precision, her rifle sounding like a war drum. 1 bullet knocked the leader's hat off his head. Another struck right between the feet of one of the bandits running toward the house. You're surrounded, Flint shouted in a powerful voice. I have 10 men positioned around the ranch. It was a lie, of course. It was only Moonlight. But she was firing from different angles of the barn so fast that it seemed like multiple shooters. The bandits panicked. Several ran for their horses, Others threw themselves on the ground seeking cover. The leader shouted contradictory orders that no one listened to. Flint took advantage of the confusion. He shot the ground near the bandits' horses, spooking them. 3 horses ran off, leaving their riders on foot. Moonlight changed position. Now she was firing from the barn window. Her aim was perfect. Every bullet passed close enough to terrorize but without hitting anyone. She wanted to scare them, not kill them. "It's a trap," shouted the young bandit. "We've been ambushed. Retreat," the leader finally ordered, his courage completely evaporated. "Everyone retreat now." The bandits ran to their horses in complete disarray. Some mounted 2 to a horse because theirs had fled. In less than 2 minutes the whole group was galloping away from the ranch, leaving a cloud of dust behind them. Silence fell over the ranch. Flint waited, still alert, until he was sure they wouldn't return. Then he lowered his rifle and walked toward the barn. Moonlight came out holding 2 rifles, one in each hand. She had a huge smile on her face. Her eyes sparkled with adrenaline. "It worked," she exclaimed. "Your crazy plan actually worked." Flint couldn't help but smile too. "Our plan, it wouldn't have worked without your aim." They looked at each other for a long moment. Something had changed between them during that battle. They were no longer strangers, not even casual acquaintances. They were partners, comrades who trusted each other with their lives. "We should go inside," Flint finally said. "Check if they stole anything." They walked toward the main house. Flint opened the door carefully. The bandits had knocked some things over, but there was no real damage. They probably hadn't had time to steal anything before the shooting started. "Your house is small," Moonlight observed, looking around. "It's enough for me," Flint replied. "I have 1 room, a kitchen, and a stable for Thunder. It's all I need. It's more comfortable than a tent," she said appreciatively. Flint suddenly became aware of the situation. A beautiful woman, the daughter of an Apache chief, was in his house, alone with him. He felt his cheeks warm. "You can take the room," he said quickly. "I'll sleep in the stable with Thunder." Moonlight looked at him with amusement. "Are you afraid of me, just Flint?" "It's not fear, it's respect. Your father is a powerful chief. I don't want him to think. My father judges men by their actions, not by assumptions," she interrupted softly. "And your actions have already saved me twice." She stepped closer to him. Flint could smell the scent of wild herbs in her hair. "You're different from other white men I've known," she said quietly. "You're honorable." "I just do what's right, exactly." She smiled. "That's why you're special." The next 3 days at the ranch were strange but peaceful. Flint and Moonlight established a comfortable routine. He took care of the cattle and repaired the fences damaged by the bandits. She hunted with surprising skill, bringing rabbits and birds for dinner. At night they sat by the fire and talked. Moonlight told him stories of her tribe, of the sacred mountains where they lived, of the traditions of her people. Flint listened, fascinated, learning about a world completely different from his own. "My father says I must marry soon," she said one night, looking at the stars. "There are 3 warriors from allied tribes who have asked for my hand." Flint felt a strange pang in his chest at those words. He had no right to feel that way, but he couldn't help it. "What do you want?" he asked carefully. Moonlight was quiet for a long moment. "I want to choose my own path. My father taught me to be strong, to think for myself, but some traditions are hard to change." "I understand," Flint murmured. She looked directly at him. "And you, Flint? Why does a man like you live alone? You could have a family, a wife, children." "I never found the right person," he answered honestly. "And after seeing what happened to my mother, I was afraid any family I started could be destroyed. Living in fear isn't living," Moonlight said wisely. "It's just existing." Her words touched something deep in Flint. She was right. He had been existing, not really living. On the 4th day, they decided it was time to take Moonlight back to her father. Flint prepared provisions for the 2-day journey to Apache lands. Thunder was rested and ready. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Moonlight asked as they mounted. "My father can be intimidating. I promise to return you safe and sound," Flint replied. "And I always keep my promises." The journey was peaceful. They passed through red canyons and pine forests. Moonlight guided the way, recognizing every tree and every rock. These were her lands, her home. They camped one night under the stars. Flint noticed Moonlight was quieter than usual, thoughtful. "What's wrong?" he asked. "I'm happy to go home," she said slowly. But I'll also be sad not to see you anymore. Flint's heart raced. He had been thinking the same thing, but hadn't dared to say it. Me too. He admitted finally. Her eyes sparkled in the firelight. These days with you have been different. You treated me as an equal, not as property or a prize. You respected me. You're easy to respect, Flint said sincerely. She smiled, but there was sadness in that smile. I wish things were different. I wish our worlds weren't so far apart. Flint wanted to say something. Anything that could change the situation. But the words wouldn't come. They just looked at each other across the fire. Two people from different worlds who had found something special and didn't know what to do about it. The next morning, they arrived at Apache territory. 2 scouts found them first. Their faces showed shock at seeing Moonlight alive. "Princess," one shouted, "we thought you were dead." "I'm fine," she replied in her native tongue. Then she switched to Spanish so Flint could understand. "This man saved me. Take me to my father." The scouts looked at Flint with distrust but nodded. They escorted them through a beautiful valley until they reached the main camp of the tribe. It was impressive. Dozens of tents spread across the valley. Smoke rose from multiple fires. Children ran playing while women worked tanning hides. Warriors trained with spears and bows. Everything stopped when they saw Moonlight. A shout of joy rose from the camp. People ran toward her, shouting her name with happiness. A woman, probably her mother, ran crying and hugged her daughter tightly. Then he appeared, Chief Red Eagle. He was an imposing man, tall and muscular, despite being over 50 years old. His face was marked by years of battles. His gaze was intense and penetrating. He wore a ceremonial headdress with golden eagle feathers. He walked slowly toward Moonlight. For a moment, he just looked at her as if he couldn't believe she was really there. Then he hugged her with a strength that spoke of days of worry and sleepless nights. "My daughter." His voice was deep and rough with emotion. "I thought I had lost you." "I'm here, father," she replied, hugging him back. "I'm safe." When they finally separated, Red Eagle turned to Flint. His eyes studied every detail of the white man who had brought his daughter back. "You," he said in perfect Spanish. "The scouts say you saved my daughter." Flint dismounted Thunder and stood straight, looking the chief directly in the eyes. He had learned that showing fear or weakness before a leader like this would be a mistake. "Yes, sir. I found her at a slave market. I bought her and protected her from the bandits who had captured her." A murmur ran through the gathered crowd. Bought implied possession, and that could be interpreted in many ways. Red Eagle narrowed his eyes. "You bought her. That means you paid for her. In our customs, when a man pays for a woman, father," Moonlight interrupted, stepping forward. "Let me explain everything." Over the next few minutes, Moonlight recounted the story. The ambush, her capture, the market where no one wanted her because of the veil, how Flint bought her when everyone else rejected her. She spoke of the battles against the bandits, of how Flint had respected her and treated her as an equal. "He saved my life twice, father," she finished, "and he never disrespected me. He's an honorable man." Red Eagle listened to everything in silence. When she finished, he remained thoughtful for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "You have done something extraordinary, white man. You returned the most precious thing I have without asking for anything in return. That speaks to your character." "I just did what was right," Flint replied. "Many men would not have done what was right," the chief observed. "I owe you a debt." "What do you want as a reward? Gold, horses, land?" Flint shook his head. "I want nothing. Seeing Moonlight safe with her family is reward enough." Red Eagle studied him intensely. Then, surprisingly, he smiled slightly. "Very interesting." He turned to his daughter. "Moonlight, you know our customs. This man bought you, saved you, protected you. There is only one honorable way to resolve this situation." Moonlight nodded slowly. Her cheeks colored slightly. "I know, father." Flint looked between father and daughter, completely confused. What custom?" Red Eagle turned to him with a serious expression, but with a glint of amusement in his eyes. "In our tribe, when a warrior saves a woman's life and brings her back to her people, especially the daughter of a chief, that warrior earns the right to ask for her hand in marriage." Flint felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. Marriage. He looked at Moonlight, who was watching her father with a mixture of surprise and something else Flint couldn't identify. "Father," Moonlight began. "It is our tradition," Red Eagle continued. "But I also believe in giving choices, So I ask you directly, white man, do you want to marry my daughter? All eyes in the camp were on Flint. He could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes watching him, waiting for his answer. His mind raced 1,000 miles an hour. He thought about the past days with Moonlight, the conversations by the fire, how she had saved him in battle, her laugh, her intelligence, her strength. He thought about how the ranch had felt empty before knowing her, and how now he couldn't imagine being there without her. He swallowed. Yes, yes. I want to marry her. A murmur of surprise ran through the crowd. Moonlight's eyes widened, but Flint continued quickly, looking directly at Moonlight. Only if she wants it too. Not because tradition says so. Not because I bought her, but because she truly wants to be with me. Red Eagle nodded approvingly. You speak with wisdom. My daughter, what do you say? Moonlight looked at Flint for a long moment. Her dark eyes searched for something in his face, in his expression. Flint let her see everything. He hid nothing. His fear, his hope, his feelings. Finally, she smiled. It was a true smile, radiant, that lit up her entire face. Yes, she said simply. I want to marry you, just Flint. The camp erupted in celebration. Shouts of joy, drums began to beat, people danced. Red Eagle raised his hands, asking for silence. Then there will be a wedding, he announced in a powerful voice. 3 days of celebration. We will invite the allied tribes. It will be an event no one will forget. The next 3 days were a whirlwind of activity. Flint was treated as an honored guest. The warriors who at first looked at him with distrust now greeted him with respect. The women prepared elaborate food. The children decorated the camp with flowers and colorful fabrics. Moonlight taught him the customs of her people, explained the meaning of each ritual, each tradition. Flint learned words in her language, tried new foods, listened to ancient stories. Are you sure about this? Moonlight asked him the night before the wedding. Your life will change completely. You can no longer live alone on your quiet ranch. Flint took her hand gently. I don't want to live alone anymore. And my ranch will be our ranch. A place where both worlds can meet. A bridge between two peoples, she murmured. Exactly. The wedding day arrived with a golden dawn. The entire camp gathered in a special clearing where they held important ceremonies. Red Eagle officiated, personally dressed in his finest ceremonial clothes.